This is the Yanks Go Yard podcast with Adam Weinrib and Thomas Carannante.
Welcome to the Yankees Go Yard podcast. I'm Adam Weinrib alongside Thomas Carannante. Almost a week of Yankees Spring Training games. That'll be tomorrow. The Stars are starting to check in at the end of the week. Brian Hoke says Aaron Judge's debut over the weekend. I feel like we got that news last year too, and then he missed that game, and then everybody freaked, and then he ended up playing pretty much a full season. So whatever. But G.J. LeMahieu around the corner. Some familiar names are starting to make starts again, preparing. Carlos Rodon somehow is getting early starts, and none of the other starters are the familiar guys. Marcus Stroman and Carlos Rodon and Will Warren. But at least we have positive things to talk about. Will Warren really enjoyed it. Really enjoyed him yesterday. Nolan Arenado showed up at Yankees camp at a road game. Is that something or nothing? He said it was nothing. But even in the nothing that he explained it as, he sort of revealed something that gave me pause and made me remember, oh, right, that's why he might be hesitant to be traded here, because it means it. We'll talk about it. Plus, the injuries won't stop. The bullpen is still deep. That's like their whole thing. But there's more. There are more bullpen injuries. And one player at the back end of the bullpen mix might be joining. Plenty to discuss from the week of action. The Yankees are 2-3. Anthony Volpe just homered off Matt Strahm. And by the way, at the end of this, if you're on the audio feed, you get an interview with Bernie Williams that I did this morning, courtesy of Tune Into Lung Health. We've spoken to Bernie the last couple of years about this campaign, and Rare Disease Day is Friday, February 28th. That is tomorrow. So at the end of this, Bernie Williams for 20 minutes. It's a great interview. And if you're on the YouTube channel, it's there also. So you can just watch it. You can just after this.
Many ways you could see it.
After this, preferably. I mean, watch this and then go watch that, or come back to this. I mean, either way, as long as you watch both, I don't really care in what order you do it. Much the way spring training goes down. I don't care in what order the Yankees perform, get prepped. If somebody is terrible on February 27th, but ready on March 21st, I don't particularly mind that. But yeah, I'm watching every game. Yeah, I'm a little overjoyed when Anthony Volpe takes Matt Strahm deep today. And yeah, I'm going to assess DH options, internal and external, while we wait for Giancarlo Stanton's recovery, which seems less and less likely to be early in the season. We'll talk about DH options as well. There are some. How many of them are interesting or good? There are a couple. Jason Dominguez just had a ball thunk off his glove in the outfield again. So
okay.
Throwing it to you at the exact correct time.
Thanks.
Your favorite thing.
No, we'll stay positive on that for sure. Dropping fly balls, normal thing that you go through developmentally as a sixth grader in Little League. So
this is a podcast that we are Yankee fans. This is a podcast that loves the Yankees, unlike those other podcasts. So we're going to be nice there. Hey, Thomas Carannante, welcome to the show. Lot of good this week, and obviously yesterday was the best of the best spring training games in terms of pure dominance from someone who is the number 7 starter right now. Makes you honestly feel pretty good 1 through 7, which is a good place to be because you know that's not going to be the case the whole season. That 5 is going to get whittled down. 6 and 7 are going to participate. Not bad to see 7 look like a complete reversal from where he was last year. And the starting offense, Dominguez, Goldschmidt, Bellinger, Wells, just pummeling.
Tom Smith?
Tom Smith might be a member of the starting offense. And that was, you can tell who knows ball and who doesn't. That was not just a random Cardinals minor leaguer who entered the game. That was Tink Hence, who's a top 100 prospect. And they were like, prospect for sure. Not ready, though. Not a regular. Goodbye. No. So yesterday, most fun game of camp. Of all the fake games, it was a good one to watch.
Love fake games. Man, I hope I owe Will Warren and Brian Cashman an apology. I like apologizing. I do. I like being wrong because I can be tough on my critiques and I can be negative about certain things. But, we talked about it extensively. Last year, Will Warren was straight up bad. There was nothing really to take out of his performances that seemed like a positive. I know he has good stuff, but he had trouble locating. He would come up in mop-up duty and still get shelled, which was, you would think, okay, maybe the Yankees put a little bit too much pressure on him throwing into these spot starts with such, with no big league experience. Let's dial it back a little bit and see what he can do. And then when they dialed it back, he would still not be good. So maybe, just maybe, we could chalk this up to first year in the bigs jitters. It's unfortunate that I feel like this happens a lot with Yankees players, but Will Warren right now, we've had this spring training conversation every year. Spring training is useful for one thing or two things. The first thing is for veteran players getting reps to get back up to speed. And the second thing is for younger players to prove themselves. Everything else doesn't matter unless there's a competition for a position. Will Warren using spring training to his full advantage right now and making good on everything that had gone sideways last year. Am I saying Will Warren is going to be in the rotation starting day one? No, the season begins in a month. A lot of things can happen, but Will Warren so far, 5 scoreless innings, 1 hit, 1 walk, 7 strikeouts. It literally doesn't get better than that. And we've seen a lot of pitchers struggle in the early going, especially young ones, historically spring training. Will Warren, I mean, looks like a completely different pitcher. The stuff is sharp. He looks like he's much more comfortable on the mound. I don't really know how to describe it outside of that. You know, you just look at these clips and you're like, oh, like he's totally confident in his stuff, and it seems like he knows exactly what he wants to throw, and he's dialing it up, and he's locating really well. So the fact that this is the start we're getting out of him this early is amazing, because we have this back end of the rotation question mark with Marcus Stroman. The Yankees pulled him from his last start. He went to Pitch Live BP. Then, you know, you wrote about, did Will Warren's first start make the Yankees more comfortable in just saying, we're not going to throw Stroman anymore. We're going to try and trade him. There's no need to showcase him at this point, or to put themselves in a bad position where he gets rocked in a couple spring training starts and his trade value goes down. I mean, it's already as low as it's going to be based on his performance last year. Yeah. I saw a funny tweet that someone was like, you think the Yankees hitters are purposely striking out so Marcus Stroman's trade value goes up?
It's nice to feel that way. Yeah. It's a nice thing to think.
Yeah. The answer is no, but it's funny to think about. But yeah, I mean, look, I hope I'm wrong on Will Warren. I really do. We talked about how we were shocked how the Yankees wouldn't just do Will Warren for Cody Bellinger straight up and just end the discussion, because there was little need for Warren based on what we had seen. But if we have this redemption arc for Will Warren and the Yankees ended up trading Cody Poteet and getting $5 million for Cody Bellinger, we'll clap for Brian Cashman when the time comes. But I mean, if the back end of the rotation is solidified with Warren and the Yankees have this really good mix of young starters and veterans, I'm loving every second of that.
Yeah, people were making the Warren Michael King comparison last year, and it was one that made sense because there are a lot of reasons that it was tough to see the Michael King vision at the time too. And revisionist history on Michael King leaves out the part where he learned Corey Kluber's breaking pitch and it completely changed his career. Like, Michael King was seen as a guy who was going to dominate in the low minors because he was advanced. And then when he got up, people weren't sure if he had a big league pedigree. And then he fought all the way up through AAA, became undeniable, and they brought him up, and he had some of the worst first inning yips of any starter I've seen in 2021. He would, ultimately go like 5 innings, 3 earned, or 4 2/3, 2 earned, or whatever, but he'd give up a 2-run home run in the first inning of every game he had, which is why it was so surprising when he just turned into a guy who could erase 2 or 3 innings at a time as a back end reliever and then back into a starter. But Warren's arsenal is similar, and the sweeper is his secret weapon. But last year, the fastball just wasn't effective enough for the sweeper to play up. So I was willing to entertain the comparisons, but it was like, I mean, you can have the greatest sweeper in the world, but if hitters are ignoring it and spitting on it while they bash your flat fastball, then what's the point? This year, it is spring, of course. Pitchers are ahead of hitters, of course, but it's just grading out better. And yes, he is in command of all of these offerings. The fastball looks more impressive. It is not the regular season. We have seen Clark Schmidt look like a hot knife through butter in spring and then hit the regular season and still struggle against lefties. It took him several years. It took King several years. I'm not saying Warren is going to show up on opening. He shouldn't be in the opening day rotation. He should be the 7th man, but he's proven to be much more intriguing insurance and maybe more ready than we thought. Maybe he even follows the King pathway of being someone they call up, because right now you're penciling in Marcus Stroman as the long man by default. They don't want him on this team, and he said he won't participate out of the bullpen. So we're doing that just because we know he has to be on the roster as of now because they're not going to DFA him. But he doesn't want to be the long man, and nothing about Stroman indicates he profiles as a particularly effective one. It's just like the bench. It's like, we don't want this guy in the lineup, so he's on the bench. We don't want this guy in the rotation, so he's in the bullpen, just hanging out. That's the way you treat the ALCS, not necessarily the full regular season. So maybe Warren is a 2-3 inning guy at first who's hanging out as rotation insurance. But at the very least, he's proving that he is, the effectiveness, what we were saying about, hey, what people were saying about we're looking at the Stuff Plus and we're looking at the comparables. Look, maybe it holds water sooner than we expected. And notably, Austin Wells, who was supposed to not catch until the first week of March, and everyone was like, I don't understand why he's taking dry ABs and not swinging and just staring at stuff, and good for preparing slow and making sure you're ready before you start. But this is a little weird. He asked into yesterday's game so that he could catch Will Warren and so that he could eventually hit a 2-run double lefty into the left center gap on a barrel.
Very nice.
So best of both worlds, clearly healthy, clearly ready to swing at this point, and shows you what the Yankees think about Will Warren at this juncture, because the presumed starting catcher on opening day was like, I know we had this plan to get me into games like over the weekend or next week, but can it be now? I want to catch Will Warren. And they let him in, and guess what? Perfect pair. He threw 3 perfect innings with 4 Ks and looked even better than he did in his first outing. So
yeah,
very heartening.
Very nice. I mean, I still don't get the Austin Wells stuff. Like, why did he have to force his way into a game? Why are the Yankees doing this and not being descriptive about it? It's just weird because they ran Anthony Volpe into the ground 2 years in a row when after his rookie year, Aaron Boone came out and said, we're like, yeah, he wear and tear at the beginning. He never played that many games in his career and he was clearly tired, and then his stamina was effective, and it kind of cascaded and affected his ability, his offensive abilities, whatever. And then he did full spring the next year and then a full season last year. So, like, why is Austin Wells the exception? Now, maybe they learned from the Volpe thing, but then the logic would be then rest Volpe a little bit last year when you have this versatility. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
But, yeah, I mean, glad Austin Wells forced himself into a game, has this rapport with Will Warren that is beneficial, and hit that double. So now no one has to worry about why he was taking dry swings or dry at bats and just staring at pitches. We had another cool thing in camp yesterday, right? Nolan Arenado is now no, I'm just kidding. He's not.
Yeah, he did. Trade is official. It's done. Yeah.
He is at George M. Steinbrenner Field. Nolan Arenado yesterday made a 3-hour trip from the Cardinals facility to Tampa for the Yankees Spring Training game, which is very uncommon because veteran players typically do not make that travel during.
That's a long one. That is
a very long one. Is it that's a drive, right? They drive 3 hours.
They bust these people, and you've got Nolan Arenado riding with
on a bus
20 randos. Like it's not easy or normal necessarily. And so there's a reason we all jump to the same conclusion of what the.
It was. I mean, it's not an insane assumption, right? Like there was a link in trade rumors, whether loose or concrete. One of the teams was the Yankees in terms of reports of where he would waive his no trade clause. The Yankees still don't have a third base solution. Was DJ LeMahieu in the lineup today?
No, he is also Hoke reported making his first appearance over the weekend, but we don't know when. He was like March 1st or 3rd. Can't wait. Cross my fingers.
Yeah, I mean, again, why? Got no playing time last year. Like, has had the most limited playing time possible over the last 4 years due to injury and rest or part-time playing, and like we're doing this.
We're gonna give him every chance to win the job. Okay, so when does he play? Never. Okay, then where are the chances? They're not. We don't have them. We're not giving them to him. Okay, great. Like, if it weren't the Yankees and they weren't so loyal, I would be like, wow, it's very obvious they do not want to give him a genuine chance to win the job. Yeah. But because they're the Yankees, because DJ LeMahieu has been an integral part of the fabric of all of this, and because we know they didn't DFA him last September, like, I can't help but view this as the opposite of, like, we don't want to expose him and show everybody that he's struggling. He's going to be the opening day starter. How long it lasts, I don't know, but we're going to be pretty inflexible here.
Yeah. Just more weird stuff. Either way, Yankees third base position is fully not solved. I have not seen how Oswald Peraza got a couple of starts at third. I have not seen how he performed.
Looked good.
So he did great.
Got a couple hits. No defensive.
Yeah, I know he had a couple of hits. I didn't see any of the defensive stuff.
Strong. I mean, Andrew Velasquez, our boy Squid, came in yesterday, looked great. So
nice.
He should be the opening day starter.
Cool.
Oswaldo made a couple nice plays at third too. There hasn't been a notable issue at third base yet, but that's because DJ LeMahieu hasn't played.
So there's either way, the solution is still up in the air. Is it going to be a platoon? Is one of these guys going to run away with it? I mean, I'm still of the belief that Oswaldo Cabrera needs to be the super utility guy.
Yeah.
He can play corner outfield spots. He can play every infield position. Like, no reason to put him in a box and say, you're the platoon third baseman. So is it going to be Oswaldo utility, platoon Peraza with LeMahieu? I don't know. LeMahieu's not playing, so we will not know until we know. But Arenado making that trip to the Yankees spring training facility had many wondering if he was, partially auditioning or just getting a lay of the land before he was potentially traded. Turns out, though, he just wanted more at bats.
As of now, Arenado was on the record after the game saying he wanted to stay in a rhythm. He wanted to see his friends, and he wanted to visit a personal trainer and set up a session. And I think the two quotes were revealing. One where he was like, if this was a showcase, I wouldn't pick my third game of spring training. Like, that's a pretty unfair way to judge. Yeah, it is. It absolutely is. It doesn't mean that you weren't maybe subtly just sending a message of loyalty or delivering one to your close friends when you showed up at Yankees camp. But obviously, if anyone's going to judge Nolan Arenado off yesterday's game only, where he went 0 for 3 with 2 Ks, then that's a little bit foolish. There's plenty more data to examine rather than that one spring game, whether he struggled or showed out. So silly to think like he was hoping to be traded for after a dominant game, or he wanted to stick it to the Yankees. And I'm glad that he said, like, hey, look, if I was trying to make this a showcase, it's a pretty bad day to showcase myself. And he wasn't wrong on that. That said, after the game, he said, I'm visiting my friends. I want to make the trip to see my friends. And you're thinking, like, who are these friends? I mean, Paul Goldschmidt obviously is one of them. And yes, they were teammates on the Cardinals last year and for several years. And Goldschmidt has spoken highly of Arenado's leadership in recent days, not just recent months. But then the other one was DJ LeMahieu from their days with the Rockies. And it took me a little bit longer to think about who that might be. And man, doesn't that just make it even more uncomfortable? The idea that like Yankee fans are begging not to, but people have strong opinions on either pursue or don't pursue Arenado. And people are begging the Yankees to, like, oh my God, we cannot go into the regular season with DJ LeMahieu at third base. Meanwhile, Arenado is a close friend and probably thinks that DJ LeMahieu does deserve another chance to prove himself, especially, or at least believes that he shouldn't be discarded so quickly.
Yeah.
Now, fans are going to say, not quickly, several years, right? He hasn't played a postseason game since 2020. So it's because of injury, not because of benching, but it's been a while. That's a long run. That's what fans are going to retort. But 4 years into a 6-year contract, Nolan Arenado, probably someone who's going to advocate for DJ LeMahieu to exhaust all possible options before him and the Yankees decide to move on. And so I don't know, does Nolan Arenado want to show up in the middle of March and just say, I have your job now? It doesn't seem that way, especially because he traveled the 3 hours we just talked about to go hang out and interface with Goldschmidt and LeMahieu. There's a chance that he just wanted to touch base with them and say, DJ, how are you feeling? Give me the honest assessment. Do you want me to try to ramp this up? How willing are the Yankees to eat some money to get me here? Do you guys want me here? Like, if you could be replaced by anybody, would it be me? There's a chance that happened, but clearly there's nothing in the works. And no, he was not just going to hang out and switch clubhouses after yesterday's early spring training game.
No, and remember, the Yankees have no loot left. So Arenado is not nobody is coming here.
No.
Nobody, I would say, with a salary. I mean, at this rate, it's got to be above $6 million is not coming.
We can't even do a Padres. We can't even be doing the $1 million with the backloaded contracts or whatever. Give me the loot. I'm a bad boy, but we have none. So I guess give me none. Give me no loot.
Yeah, it's fun speculation at this point. It's hardly it's hardly cemented in reality. How it's going to transpire is until this Marcus Stroman deal comes off the books, if it is going to, or a portion of it's going to. Don't count on anything being added, at least now, because, again, we are fully under the assumption, at least based on what reporters are saying, that the Yankees want to remain flexible for the trade deadline. I don't know what they're going to get at the trade deadline. I don't think they have many assets to trade, but I guess you never know how prospects can kind of jump up the rankings between now and July. Maybe the Yankees are hopeful of that. Maybe they're willing to trade some off their major league roster with all this pitching depth. I don't know, but either way, Arenado, probably not happening. We could just have our fun and speculate. More news, Yankees-centric injuries. What else is new, folks? It's every year we have this. How negative have we been here? I don't think that negative. I think just reporting the news. Objectively, the Giancarlo Stanton stuff has been bizarre with how not the personal stuff, folks. We hope Giancarlo's okay. It's very unfortunate to hear that when Aaron Boone kind of snuck that in, and then Aaron Judge commented on it afterwards. And
whatever it is, we know nothing more about it than we did 3 days ago, which was absolutely nothing at that point. So
yep, we were all taken aback that it had turned into a personal issue. From the discourse, we were obviously told when he arrived to camp there was an elbow injury, then it was 2 elbow injuries, then it was an elbow injury that existed all through last year, and he played through, and it worsened over the offseason, but he still came to spring training and then immediately left to go back to testing in New York. So it was all just bizarre, and then Aaron Boone just randomly drops in. He's in New York for a personal issue, and that's all I'm going to say about that. And we're like, what's happening? Is everything all right? Like, why does this story keep changing? Another one of those Yankees things where you're like, I'm getting a new bit of information that's completely different from the last one every 10 minutes now. So why didn't we get this straight the first time? But Stanton has no timetable to even return to spring training. They don't know when he's going to return. It's up to him to sort everything out. Again, hope everything's all right. But in terms of the injury, there's no update on him visiting. He was visiting Yankees doctor Chris Ahmad to get to the bottom of whatever was going on, whether it was imaging or further testing. Nothing on that front. So a little bit concerning. And obviously we lamented enough about how the Yankees just refused to address this when they kind of knew that the problem was growing and growing and growing, and then reached a point where, oh yeah, we're going to be without our maybe second best hitter for the first 2 months of the season. Yeah, we'll be fine. No, you got to get off to a fast start. 2025 is very important. There's still an argument to be made that this roster is not as deep as it should be or could be. So yeah, problems are going to exist here, unfortunately. As for others, good news. You want good news, folks. Jake Cousins nearing a return to throwing. Apparently he passed his most recent tests with his flexor strain. It was
great elbow. Yeah. Just a phenomenal elbow. We've never seen anything like it.
So yeah, good to see that. He's going to be very important. The way that he performed down the stretch last year, man, that was a savior. A lot of the reason the Yankees performed so admirably last year was these guys coming out of nowhere. And obviously they had the star power to back it up. But the fact that they rely on these unknowns to just come out of, and I know part of it is scouting. I'm not going to take away from the scouting or, Cashman finding these cost-effective, low-dollar additions that end up contributing as a $7 million player would. But man, it's every year. There's 4 of these guys, and you're like, how is this a business plan? This is hardly a plan for your roster. This is risk and risk and risk. And if it doesn't work out, you're just churning more players. But anyway, thankful for Jake Cousins. Thankful that he's going to be back. We learned today that Yorbit Vivas has been held out of spring games due to a shoulder injury. Yep. Apparently he's on the mend.
But that is exactly what happened to Oswald Peraza last year, where they were like, it's a shoulder injury and it's probably not that bad. Actually, it's 2.5 months. So the Yankees have been lucky enough outside of Stanton to basically only lose bullpen depth.
Yeah.
People who you weren't necessarily counting on, but then you check somebody off the list and just go, okay, I guess not that guy. And then starting, position player depth, guys, you're like, I wanted to see him, but I guess I can't. Stanton is the only integral figure so far, but Vivas hurts, especially because there are infield vacancies to be won.
Yeah, I mean, overall, the injury luck hasn't been that bad. What in terms of what we've seen in years past, Giancarlo is obviously a bummer, but we talked about, he's missing 50 plus games a year. It just is what it is. And we've lived with it before. It sucks to start the season like that, as opposed to working to see with what you have and then being able to put the pieces in place when somebody goes down. That's like, 2019 Yankees comes to mind there. Like, guys just went down all year and they were like, fuck it, nope, putting somebody else here. We're a well-oiled machine. But yeah, for the most part, like, again, it's mostly been depth. Vivas, a guy that came over from the Dodgers last year in an offseason trade, and interesting bat, like, pretty nice lefty swing, a versatile infielder. Wanted to see more of him because there's a lot up in the air with the Yankees infield right now. Would be helpful, but don't know when that's going to be. Aaron Boone just said soon. Don't know what soon means. It could mean 5 different things in the Yankees dictionary. And then finally, we have Scott Effross, who I'm convinced we may never see again. I don't know how this keeps happening, but he pitched 1 inning of spring work last week and then came in for an inning yesterday, it was yesterday, right? Or the day before, Tuesday.
I think it was the day before.
Yeah. Came in for one pitch on Tuesday against the Twins and immediately left due to a hamstring issue. Came out this morning that he has a grade 2 hamstring strain, and Aaron Boone said, quote, "It's going to be a while." Scott Effross has pitched in 3 games since the end of the 2022 season. The end of that year, he had Tommy John surgery. He did not come back, obviously, because it happened right in the beginning of the offseason. So he had missed all of 2023. Then he was on the mend for 2024. Surprise back surgery in December of 2023. Delayed his trajectory for 2024. Had a setback with his arm multiple times in 2024. Came up for 3 innings. Looked so bad. Got destroyed at AAA. Surprised they even brought him up because he was performing so badly.
Yeah.
And then he was shut down at the end of last year due to more injury troubles. And now he's not going to get a full work of spring in. So, I mean, it's crazy how this keeps happening. You feel bad, obviously. It's really shitty, but at some point, like, the Yankees can't ever factor him into any plans. He's pitched in, I think, 19 games since coming over at the 2022 trade deadline. Like, still an objectively crazy trade, in my opinion. He had 60 career appearances out of the bullpen, and the Yankees traded a top prospect in Hayden Wesneski for him because they valued the team control that he came with for the additional 5 years. And it was like, well, I mean, he looked pretty good, but there wasn't a large enough sample size to be like, oh, this guy's definitely a bullpen weapon.
And he relied heavily on not velocity, which is like the number one thing where I'm like, all right, so let's say everybody gets used to this frisbee slider. Then what? Like, he can't get batters out in the zone necessarily. Not to poo-poo him, but you have 6 years of control of Hayden Wesneski and 5 of Effross. So you have to think Effross is unequivocally better than Hayden Wesneski, which at that point, Wesneski's a starter and Effross is not. So you're already saying starting pitching prospect means less to me than a guaranteed bullpen arm.
Yeah.
And then anything can happen to a bullpen arm. I'd bet on velocity over what Effross brought to the table. And if you were to develop someone like Effross in your system and he has that kind of rookie year at the age of 28, you should be proud. That's an amazing breakthrough.
Yeah.
But to surrender a top 10 prospect for him after the Cubs developed him, and the Cubs are sitting there probably being like, we love him, but he's a 28-year-old reliever, and we have other guys. We think we can print more relievers, and the Yankees want to give us a bona fide starting pitcher who held his own in Chicago. If Wesneski did what he did in Chicago and Effross was healthy, Wesneski probably has more value because of the innings he ate in the rotation. And then he goes to Houston. He's the 3rd piece in the Kyle Tucker trade that we didn't have enough depth to pull off because we didn't want to give up Luis Heel. So factors into a trade we should have made but couldn't make. Probably had more value than Effross, even if Effross stays healthy forever. In hindsight, well, no, not really. And then now that's not even factoring in the idea that he maybe could be great in Houston as a starting pitcher, swingman, which
could be.
He might be. So I'm hopeful we get Scott Effross back at some point, but he came back diminished from the Tommy John. He was not someone I was counting on contributing this year. Not someone I've counted on contributing since he went down initially.
No.
And now the years of control are a burden because now he's on your 40-man roster, taking up a spot. If he's on the 60-day IL, that's one thing. He's going to start the year on the 60-day because he has to get through this grade 2 strain, and then build up and have a full spring. And maybe we see him in June. It's exactly what happened to him last year, except for last year, I thought he was going to be the 7th inning guy. And this year I was like, he's our 12th reliever. And then we lose him and I go, oh, right. But man, what a huge loss for Brian Cashman. At the time, intriguing. And I let people talk up Effross around me, and I was smiling and nodding, but I was nervous about it. And now, at the time, interesting but strange. Now, hindsight, total waste. And you could have used it. It's
the asset usage. Like you have
it's the asset usage.
That's all it is. Like I have no beef with people have injury troubles. Like it sucks. Like Effross I don't know what's going on. It's unfortunate, but like if you have a top 10 pitching prospect, that's like he was top 100, right? Wesneski, he had to have been.
That year was the year he was building momentum. So at the start of the year, he was like our 15th.
He was on the trajectory
on MLB pipeline. Yeah. But I mean, that spring was a spring when he had just a Frisbee breaking ball. He was like the Will Warren of that camp, had a great year. And I have no issue trading any pitching prospect, especially, I mean, it's not Paul Skeens we're talking about. You've got to trade pitching prospects if you got them and if you believe you can develop more. But that's the confusing thing. That's how you use the asset. Eventually, even after struggling at the major league level, he was used for Kyle Tucker. And if you think you can keep printing relievers, then why trade for one at all? Like, is Scott Effross with his 60-game track record a win now move? Is it like getting David Robertson in the middle of that season? I don't view it that way.
I don't know. It's just like with all the talk that we have of the Yankees either getting ripped off in trades or not ripped off, but like, there's the Yankees tax and everything. Like it felt like Wesneski was a perfect asset to build a bigger package for somebody else with. And if you didn't believe in him that much and you were like, oh, we'll trade him for a reliever, then why wasn't he the third piece in a bigger deal to bring a more impactful player here? That's just my thoughts.
And for me, I mean, look, we want to give Brian Cashman credit where it's due. We can't judge anything this spring, I would say. But look at how many recent trades that sort of feel like minimal exchanges and low risk and sort of intrigue for intrigue have turned out in the other team's favor. Like Mark Leiter Jr., intrigue for intrigue. I'd rather have the guy we gave up. Ben Cowles looks like a helpful infield piece. Our infield stinks. That's not even to mention Jack Neely. The trade we just brushed off a couple of minutes ago. Yeah, we got Yorbit Vivas, and he's barely factored into anything. He doesn't participate. Trey Sweeney was a starter on a playoff team last year.
Yeah,
last October. Caleb Ferguson came here. Awful. Ditched at the deadline. Victor Gonzalez DFA'd in June. Like, we're just accepting that if Brian Cashman makes a small trade where you're like, I can see both sides, it's going to be an L. Like, that's what we're assuming. These are trades where these aren't 4-for-1s. These aren't prospects for superstars. It's like, your intrigue for my intrigue, your potential for my potential. Meanwhile, the part the Yankees got in all of these trades, they've played a grand total of 3 major league games. And they don't participate. And the other pieces who go elsewhere are relatively useful.
Yeah.
Sweeney, Cowles, Neely, Wesneski.
Yeah. So when Wesneski whoops our ass at some point in Houston, we'll bring it back up again. But again, trying to stay positive. Clayton Beater a little bit behind. Looking forward to seeing him, but I guess we got to wait a little bit longer, huh? That's just what life is. Jonathan Loaisiga, 60-day IL. Still don't understand why he got $5 million, but again, we'll see what happens when he comes back, and we'll have more updates for you when the time comes.
Broken record. We've said it a million times. Like, you can give him $5 million knowing he's not going to be back early if you're willing to spend money on other things and people. But you gave him $5 million. He can't pitch till June. And now you're like, well, we spent too much on XYZ. Some of that was spent on non-participatory players. So if you're delegating your money that way, then why the fuck is Jonathan Loaisiga on this team? Like, if you're willing to do that, why aren't you willing to do other things? Why aren't you willing to replace Giancarlo Stanton with JD Martinez? And then when the time comes, just say, oh, all right, we got what we needed. He was great through June, or he was passable through June, and now we can DFA him, and we spent $8 million, but it was worth it because we won 3 extra games. I don't understand. This is money going to someone who was already recovering from major surgery, who you've relied upon in recent years. And got
elbow surgery 2 years in a row. But yeah, I mean, you're totally right. It's a position, right, where we loud the Yankees consistently. They find relievers. We just talked about it. Jay Cousins coming out of nowhere. Tim Hill revived from the White Sox. Like, they find these guys and they turn into major contributors, and then you're going to turn around and drop $5 million on a guy who delivered for you essentially for 1.5 seasons and then was injured for the rest of time or underperformed the rest of time. But yeah, 60-day IL for Jonathan Loaisiga. And you can suspect fans will rightfully be angry in the second half of the year if he doesn't get up to speed quick enough. And if this team had spent the $5 million on an asset they didn't really need when they had other roster problems that were very much obvious.
I mean, I'm still thinking about a comment earlier was like Alex Verdugo, and I'm not thinking about Alex Verdugo for defense and left, Jason Dominguez at DH in the meantime. I'm very much thinking about Jason Dominguez in center, Bellinger in left, because that is Dominguez's position, and Bellinger is a great defender who can cover a difficult left field at Yankee Stadium. I don't mind running Dominguez. I'm not going to scream about running Dominguez out there in left in spring training to get a feel for it. But if you're seeing what we're seeing and you don't find it fit to make a move before the regular season begins and things don't get better, then I don't know what to tell you, folks. But
Never know.
Yeah, I mean, Rizzo at DH doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me, but Verdugo, considering his market is bupkis, like $3 million for Verdugo to go play left field and Dominguez to DH to start the season, and then we can transition Verdugo onto the bench mid-year or trade or DFA or do whatever you're going to do. Like, you can grow a beard now. Like, I don't really even love the player, but he's
maybe
not
they'll amend the chain rule and he can wear 2 chains instead of 1.
You wear well manicured chains. It all depends how shaved down the chains are. Are the diamonds, ridged or are they flat? I don't know. But these are the things that we're thinking about week 2.
This is all we think about.
Yeah.
What I'm thinking about is Nestor Cortez's comments yesterday. Why do we got to do this? I don't know.
Well, not on the team, luckily.
Not on the team.
So luckily not
on the team, but still, I don't know. The guy's confident. The guy feels a certain way, but like now it's firmly Yankees fans in the crosshairs, and it's very frustrating because Nestor Cortez, for as good as, again, another guy who was found out of nowhere and got developed, and beautiful story in 2022, made the All-Star game with Jose Trevino. It was lovely to see. It was cool to see him become a fan favorite. It was cool to see him become a useful asset throughout a good majority of his time with the Yankees, but it seems like, I don't know, a lot of this stuff got to his head. I noticed it last year. I don't know if anybody else did, but I was very frustrated with his body language during starts. He would like give up a hit or give up a double and like start pouting on the mound. And I'm like, dude, do you think you're Nolan Ryan or something? Like, you're unhittable? Mm-hmm. You're going to give up home runs. You're going to give up runs. This is part of the game. Like, why are you throwing your hands in the air, putting your hands on your knees, like shrugging, putting your head down? Like, it's crazy. This is a start in the beginning of June. There is no reason for this. So I think maybe the 2022 success coupled with maybe the injury troubles over the last year and a half got to him in terms of all of that. I don't know. Maybe I'm psychoanalyzing a little bit too much, but that's what I noticed. And then you have him at Brewers camp. He's asked about the World Series, and he talked about how obviously losing sucked and made a comment about how the Yankees were clearly the better team and everybody knew that. And then he essentially he did what every hater loves to see any fan do, right? You go through and you rewrite what might have happened in a game and you'd be like, well, if this giant important thing didn't happen, then we fucking win the game, dude. Did you not pay attention? Yeah, of course. If you win game 1 and your manager makes the correct decision, you probably have a better chance to win the World Series.
Correct.
If you don't blow game 2 by digging yourself into a hole with Carlos Rodon on the mound, then yeah, maybe you win game 2. And hey, maybe if you knew how to respond to adversity in a timely and effective manner, you win game 3. And then, hey, you win game 4. And then, oh, yeah, should have won game 5, but you didn't. So Nestor essentially goes through how all these games would have been different if the Yankees had gotten their way, which, yeah, a great exercise to do privately in your room by yourself, never to tell anybody else because you know how that conversation is going to go. Mm-hmm. And then he essentially hyped himself up and said that nobody remembers his second outing because all that they remember was the first one, which, folks, do you remember the first one? The first one was when he gave up a walk-off grand slam to Freddie Freeman in game one. Not his fault. I will die on the hill forever that this is Aaron Boone's fault. That at that point in time, Nestor Cortes went down with an injury on September 18th. He did not pitch again for the remainder of the season. The next game that he came in for, October 25th, game one of the World Series. What does he do? He gets Shohei Ohtani to foul out. Great. They intentionally walk Mookie Betts, and then he throws Freddie Freeman a 92-mile-an-hour fastball right in his hot zone, and he gives up a grand slam to lose the game. So, Nestor, as much as that is terrible, that was the reality. Your manager put you in a bad spot. I forever will believe that. Your ability to execute on almost 6 weeks of rest, nobody can execute properly on 6 weeks of rest. It's not even up for debate. It is what it is. And then to comment about how your second outing went well, came in a game that you were already down 3-0, and you said you dominated Freeman and dominated Ohtani and dominated Mookie Betts. Mookie Betts lined out to center field on a hard hit ball. Shohei Ohtani had a dislocated shoulder because he slid into second base and injured himself the game prior, and Freddie Freeman reached base on an error. So, like, I don't know what you're talking about. You got 5 outs, you threw 1 2/3 scoreless innings, but like it got the Yankees nowhere. You still lost the game 4-2. I guess you stopped the bleeding at that point, but the game was already in theory decided. But like, this is the stuff I don't want to hear. And I understand it's tough for him to deal with because you have that weighing on you all offseason. You have that weighing on you going into the new year. You have a fan base who's maybe, I don't know what's going on with Brewers fans, but maybe they're a little bit skeptical of his arm injury and the fact that
I would be.
And the fact that he's coming off that bad showing in the World Series. Like, yes, that's what everybody's going to remember. I wish it weren't the case. Like, life would be much easier if these big magnified moments that turn out poorly in your favor aren't what's ingrained in everybody's memory, but it is. So, I mean, I know it's a lot to deal with, but man, like this can't be the commentary coming out at this point. This is crazy.
And who's asking him? And why are we asking him?
Yeah,
and
why?
He's saying the things that we know he feels privately, but like, does he have to state them publicly? It's 4 months now, almost, just about, actually, pretty much even. And we're seeing comments, as always, like, hey, if he doesn't bring Nestor in, the Yankees win. I do not know if that is true. Tim Hill was fantastic in the postseason. He also did not face Shohei Ohtani, Mookie Betts, Freddie Freeman in a row with the game on the line in game one of the World Series during any of the previous postseason games. I'm not that confident that the Yankees win that game anyway. Jake Cousins, God love him, can't walk Gavin Lux. Oswaldo Cabrera gets a potential game-ending double play ball, or at least a force out at second. Doesn't get an out on that ball. First and second, 1 out. Really, really hard to protect that 1-run lead. Could Tim Hill have done it? Yeah. Did Tim Hill have a better chance than Nestor Cortes of doing so? I would only put the odds at like 10% better. But you bring in Tim Hill, you don't get killed by the media if you're Aaron Boone. Everyone's angry that the Yankees lost, right? But no, you don't get killed if you're Aaron Boone. You bring in Tim Hill and he blows it. Nestor is too cute. It's too cute to move. It was the wrong move. I can't guarantee that either would have worked. I'm inclined to believe neither would have worked.
Yes.
But this was too cute, and so Boone did not protect himself. He went out on a limb for a guy who had not pitched in a month, who he believed in because of private workouts, and who was killing himself to get back. And he got back, and Boone wanted to give him a narrative moment. And instead, Boone gave him hell on earth. Boone gave him something he has to answer for in a new city now that his Yankees career is over. So nobody asks me about my next outing. Yeah, man, nobody is going to ask you about that. It was in a game the Yankees lost to go down 3-0 in the World Series. I was there and I don't remember it. I was rooting for you, and I'm glad you brought it up so that I could remember. That's nice that you didn't have to leave the mound in despair and disgrace. But at the same time, no one's going to forget that game one. And that's the scar that Aaron Boone put on Nestor Cortes.
Yep.
And that is going to lead. I mean, man, there is no sadder exercise than if we hadn't given up devastating home runs, we would have won the game. That is the history. I mean, you'd make fun of any fan base.
Any fan. If Peyton Manning didn't throw those interceptions against the Patriots, like 5 Super Bowls, that's awesome.
Red Sox fans always do that. Like, man, if the umpire had called strike 3 on Jason Castro in Game 4 of the ALCS, we would have gone to the World Series in 2021. Then you give up like 7 runs after that. What? Don't give up 7 runs in the 9th inning, and then maybe you might go to the World Series. In fact, like, you cannot be doing that. And I'm glad Nestor's no longer on the Yankees while he's doing it. I think Boone's been relatively classy and accurate in his responses of like,
he has been.
But even in those classy and accurate responses, he's getting made fun of by Dodger fans who are like, give it up, you lost, take an L. At least he's not getting to the podium and being like, we did win the World Series, actually. What the fuck are you talking about? And that's what Nestor Cortez is doing. We should be up 3-2. That's what the most delusional fan trying to cope with the disaster should be saying themselves on the couch. I mean, we were all doing it as they were blowing the lead in Game 5, being like, oh my God, they really were close to bringing a lead to LA. Close.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, at every pivot point, they pivoted towards the loss. They lost 3 really bad games in the World Series and beat up on the Dodgers longmen and Daniel Hudson, who ended up having a career-ending injury. So, I'm glad they won a World Series game. I'm glad Anthony Volpe hit a grand slam, but I mean, should have the better team. You can argue they shouldn't have even won Game 4. Because if that series was closer, the Dodgers never would have done what they did. They wouldn't have brought in these pitchers. They wouldn't have brought in Ben Kasparius or whatever. That's not how it would have gone down. So should have. I mean, didn't, though.
Did not.
We're down 3-0, and that's why you won Game 4. Yeah. So close in the aggregate. Dodger fans and Dodger players saying you didn't belong in the same field as us. I disagree.
Yeah.
But
fully disagree with that.
Should have won the World Series. No, absolutely not. Shouldn't have and didn't.
Did not. I mean, in real time, when you're sitting there and you're like, man, if they didn't blow Game 5, like, this could have been interesting and cool.
You'd go home and be proud of what was probably going to be a 6-game loss.
Yeah. But and you're thinking about what might have happened, but I'm not sitting here in February being like, man, like, they should have won that World Series.
We pretty much did win the World Series. I feel great, actually. What?
We asked AI if the Yankees won the World Series, and here's what they came up with. And AI's like,
no, the Yankees did not win the 2022 World Series. It's like, all right, you guys are like 3 years behind. I forgot. Yeah.
And we got, before we sign off here, we got a little Vladdy talk. What is this about? He's just being a businessman, right? Kind of like what Soto was doing. They're talking about, hey, would you go to the Yankees? And of course, he had those joking comments 2 years ago where he's like, I wouldn't go to the Yankees if I was dead.
Is this a segment of What's All This About? Are we doing another segment of What's All This About?
And now he's saying, yeah, I'm open to all 30 teams. And, like, obviously he wants to expand his market. And, like, you got some names and analysts out there saying, oh, yeah, my favorite is, like, he'd be a great fit in the middle of the Yankees lineup. Yes. Mm-hmm. He'd be a great fit in any middle lineup on the planet. MLB, KBO, NPB, any team on the World Baseball Classic. Vladdy would be great in the middle of that lineup. Doesn't mean he's coming there. And I don't know where we think the Yankees are spending. The Yankees weren't willing to go to the greatest of lengths for Juan Soto. Why are they going to start going for tier B players who are now experiencing an inflated market because of the market Soto created? I don't think this is happening, but what do you think?
No, I don't think this is happening at all. And I hear Red Sox fans skeptical that they're going to extend themselves and sign him. I don't really know what they just gave $40 million a year to Alex Bregman. I think there's definitely a chance that they do that, but I think there's no chance that the Yankees pay $550 million for anybody other than Juan Soto. They're not playing in that sandbox right now. Vlad is just finally doing what we were told he should be doing all along, which is his dad even was like, don't rule out the Yankees, you idiot. What are you doing? Don't. Why would you? Put the scare into your own team. Put the fear of God into your club. And they should be paying. They are the team, the Toronto Blue Jays, with their rich TV owners and a lot of money unspent. They're the team that should be putting a bad contract on their books to bring Vlad back forever. They should be like, I know you saw Juan Soto's contract. I know you like that. you're not quite Juan Soto, but how's $620 million sound? And then Vlad's like, it sounds great. Let's do that. Because Steve Cohen said recently that the Steve Cohen tax is not sustainable for him. And he's right. It's really a punishment. You lose draft picks. You lose international money. Eventually, you can't make trades anymore unless you reinvest in the best scouts in the world, but they all work for the Dodgers. So unless you have this unbelievable development system that can keep mining gold out of the 38th overall pick, it's really not easy to spend that much money consistently. Now, the Yankees are, they have no excuse not to spend all they have to do to win. But Steve Cohen saying, I can't do this forever. Like, he's not going to stick himself with $52 million a year for Vlad Jr. as he ages out of the first base position into a perma DH. I don't know if the Red Sox are going to do it either, even though that's where he wants to be with Devers and Casas, although they're desperate to trade Casas and they shouldn't be. Whatever. I'm done talking Red Sox roster because every time I say this makes no sense, they just do it anyway and then they get better. I mean, Vlad would obviously make them better, and trading Tristan Casas for pitching would also probably make them better ultimately. But like Alex Bregman has fucked up everything on that depth chart, but still he's a winner. He's going to make them better. But I don't think the Mets are going to do it. I don't think the Red Sox are going to do it. If the Mets do it, they're going to have to make some real concessions. I think the Blue Jays should just splurge on this, and this is good pressure. But why on earth would the Yankees be the team to spend this coin, spend a more normal amount of money on Kyle Tucker? Like, what does this do for anybody?
Oh, God, do we want to do that, though? Because then Judge moves out of right field, or what even is? I don't know. I'm not talking about this. I hate this. I hate all of this. Every year, this is like, and it was the same thing last year with Soto. It's like Soto came to the Yankees. Everyone's like, well, Soto's becoming free. Yeah, I fucking know he's becoming a free agent. I have him for a year, though. I don't want to talk about what's happening next. I don't care where Vladdy's going next year. I care about 2025 for now. If shit starts to go off the rails for the Yankees and I have to start distracting my brain, I'll start imagining situations where big free agents come to my team in next November or December. But right now, no, I don't care what Vladimir Guerrero Jr. is going to do. For the sake of baseball and for the sake of Toronto, I hope he stays there because I don't know who else is going to go there at this point. Like, he has at least a built-in relationship with the organization. He apparently likes it there based on what he's saying, or maybe that's more lip service. Who knows? But stay there. Whatever. I mean, not worrying about it now. Spring training starting. We are positive and fun. And that's it. Yankees baseball, baby.
We're positive and fun.
Scoring some runs. I like scoring runs. Cody Bellinger sliding catch. That was sick. You had, I think last week, the Bellinger one hopper to Jazz, who made a sick tag. Love that. Outside of these Dominguez defensive issues, I think everything's looked fairly good based on the clips that I've seen. And you're seeing consistent offense. Goldschmidt doing things again. No, most of these guys don't need to be special. They just need to be competent, right?
Yeah.
And that's it. That's what we're seeing so far, as opposed to 0 for 10 with 8 strikeouts to start spring. We're not seeing any of that shit, which is great. And we have Aaron Judge making his debut on Saturday, baby. There it is. Yeah. Until I guess maybe he's not.
Maybe not. We don't know. Volpe putting the ball in the air. I like that. Tim Hill just put himself in a bases loaded jam and got out of it. So I guess I'm wrong. They would have won the World Series if Tim Hill came in. I've enjoyed spring so far, but we're 6 games in and I'm already like, all right, get me to the season.
Yeah, just opening day it.
I think I disagree with the comment that it's going to be a long season, but they are in a position where there are a couple of really bad injuries from it being a long season like 2023. So I'll keep the faith that it won't be until it is, and then we'll see what happens. But a lot of players to follow, a lot of people who could potentially make an outsized impact.
Yeah.
And I liked every pivot from losing Juan Soto. But then, again, my brain does get dragged back into being like, man, how many big moments last year were Juan Soto? That sucks. Tons. But hey, we'll see. Pressure's off. Nobody's hitting free agency next year who's like, got to win it for this guy, right? The awful pressure last year of everyone reminding you Juan Soto is a free agent, like you said, was just like, everything is so magnified. Every hamstring strain is killing our chances of winning a World Series in the only year of Juan Soto. Then it turned out the Yankees just killed their own chances, and now they can reset, and I think they are just as likely to win a World Series this year as they were last year. We'll see. We shall see. I don't think Jason looks rough. Jason looks good on offense. and rough on defense.
Yeah, I mean, you just can't be bobbling grounders, can't be missing fly balls. It comes out. I don't need him making a diving play in the gap, full extension. Don't need him climbing up the wall to rob home runs. But like the whole thing we talked about this offseason that was the most valuable for this team was tightening up on defense and just basic fundamental aspect of it. And unless, again, I'll take bad defense if you're hitting 30 plus home runs, right?
Yeah.
Like that's the trade-off with, putting someone like Jock Peterson in left field if you had to. Yeah. Great. You're not going to get a great left fielder, but he's going to pummel 25 to 35 home runs and 80 RBIs. So that's good. Can't have Verdugo, who's like touch and go with defense, like really good some days. And then you're just like, what's going on other days? And then has a 620 OPS. Like, if Dominguez is going to blow the doors off offensively and he's going to miss a couple fly balls, okay. But the jury's still out on the offense, and the fundamentals just still slipping through the cracks is a little bit concerning. And you have another issue today. We'll hopefully, I don't know, social media will do its thing, and then we'll respond, and then we'll be the assholes. So
I agree. I mean, but if you're doing this in February, you're hopefully doing it for a reason, and you're willing to pivot if he continues to struggle or he gets better. But right now, bad on defense, but let's not act like Juan Soto wasn't a disaster in right field last year. He almost tore his wrist up on the first play of spring training, diving at something. Yep. So, circuitous roots. I mean, Juan Soto is a tragedy.
Not a good defender. It's no secret, and it's not coping. We said it last year. We said, man, I wish Aaron Judge was in right field. This would make our lives so much easier, and we couldn't have it because we had a generational hitter, which that was the trade-off, and that was a fair trade-off.
More than erased it on offense. It was totally worth having, but a devastatingly bad defender.
Yep.
And a Gold Glove finalist. Well, we'll see you on the podcast on Monday afternoon. Stay tuned on the audio feed coming up right after this. As we sign off, Bernie Williams, courtesy of Tune Into Lung Health, talking about his father's disease, as well as the 2025 Dodgers trying to repeat his view on Soto leaving, what he learned when he almost left himself for the Red Sox, as well as some fun stuff about a concert he's playing at the Stone Pony and his meetings with Bruce Springsteen. You're going to like it. For Thomas Carannante at Tommy's Takes on Twitter, I'm Adam Weinrib at Adam Weinrib on Twitter. We will see you on Monday, and stay tuned. Stay on the audio feed to hear Bernie Williams. Take care.